Hello, James.
Hey, Jeffrey.
Well, thanks for joining me.
I am glad to be here finally.
Finally, I think we did one a long time ago. We did a roundup, but it was I think multiple people.
Yeah, there was four of us, I believe. It has been a while.
I think that's probably been about 2 years ago, maybe.
Yeah, yeah. Zach and let's see who else was there.
I think Mark Finn was there.
I think you're right. Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, been a lot of water in the bridge since then.
Really has. The zine, whatever you want to call it, the zine community has just exploded.
Yes,
Um,
it has.
in a good way. In a good way.
Yeah, it has been. I think it's kind of interesting. And I guess and the sad part is I've been more busy in doing my business that the sad part is my head's been kind of down to the ground as I'm working away, and I am less engaged, unfortunately, with what's going on with a lot of people.
Yeah, you know, I have just recently made the decision to try to re-engage with a lot of my fellow content creators because I was feeling the same way. I was like, I've let take a step back. I had somebody a couple of years ago, they said, okay, here's the deal. When you get 10 publications of your own that you're selling out of your wherever, your basement or your office or whatever, you've become a publisher. And I kind of laughed at that. But honestly, I think I'm at 30 now, 30 different zines. And it's become a business. Like I, I want to get back to the fun, not that writing zines isn't fun, but I want to get back to that point where I'm able to connect with my fellow content creators and
Yeah.
see how we can help one another and things like that.
Well, I think the thing is that if you're doing more than one or doing more than a couple Kickstarters a year, um, you are busy in a process. And like for me, it's like I can't just think about what my next Kickstarter is. I got to think about the Kickstarter after that, the Kickstarter after that, and also the Kickstarter after that. So
Yeah.
it's like, especially with getting people. So there's a never a point where you could just kind of stop, because if you stop, then you've just cost yourself,
Yeah.
months.
Yeah. And when you do regular Kickstarters, whether it's once a month, once a quarter, twice a year, whatever, your readers do, they expect, you've trained them. And so you sort of, I won't say you've dug yourself a hole, but I'm going to say it. I sort of dug myself a hole, but I'm not going to complain because, how many of us have said, man, I would love to be able to make a living doing what I love and enjoy? Well, some of us are there. And so I'm not going to complain too loud, but you're right. I'm not working on, I have a Kickstarter launching in about 4 days, but that one was designed a while back. I'm already, another Kickstarter and almost a Kickstarter and a half ahead of where so now I have to go back and think, oh yeah, that's right. I'm going to be launching these two on January 15th. And uh, questions come up and things like that about, what was I thinking or how am I going to present this and stuff like that. So I
But
did reach out to you
yeah,
about
most
that.
of your stuff though is you're doing the writing for all your stuff, aren't you?
Yeah, but that's got to stop.
Yeah.
um, I'm trained as a technical writer. I can write. I used to think I can write a lot. I can write 3 to 4 thousand words a day if I really put nose to grindstone. But I have a friend that does like 8,000 words a day. And but when the words per day is not, when you're writing for gaming content, words per day doesn't mean a lot, because if the content isn't something that people enjoy to read or use in their own games, what's the point? So for me, the writing's not the hard part. It's the creative part. I mean, you writer block or writer's block or creativity block, whatever you want to call it. It's a real thing. And so I made 2024 my decision. In 2024, I was going to start opening up some of my zines to third party, well, freelance writers. And I got to get on that.
Well, yeah, I couldn't write. Well, I say couldn't. We all can do things. It's like, I just know it's very difficult for me to have a large output of writing.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I knew right early on, for me to do more than just a little bit here and there, I had to get other people to write. There was no other way.
Yeah. I think you did it. I not think I know from a content creator's point of view that you've done it right. Um, it's hard. It's hard sometimes when you create something to open it up to other people, but you have to do it because if you don't, you can get overwhelmed. Life sometimes hits you with strange roadblocks or things that happen, and so that's one of the reasons I enjoy the RPG zines Facebook group because I can touch base with other people and maybe get a friendly shoulder to cry on sometimes or ask some questions
Yes.
and things.
Yeah, and I think for me, and I had a talk with Lou. I think he's like you. I think there's a feeling of certain thing being your baby. And for me, it's like I see a certain thing and I need it to come about and be. And I may have strong opinions on it, but I don't have to be the one to necessarily do it. I just need to make sure it exists.
Right. Listen, I used to manage when I was a tech writer I wrote about 35 books over a 10-year period. And out of those 35 books, there were 5 to 10 of them that were compilations. They were like multiple authors contributing. And the way those books worked is the publisher, if I pitched the book or they asked me to run the book, I was responsible not only for writing my content, but if let's say it was a 10 chapter book, 10 writers contributing each chapter, I had to corral those cats, and make sure the deadlines were getting met and the editors were ready to roll when someone turned their stuff in. And so I know what I'm facing when I open those doors. I'm going to open those doors very slowly. But I need to, Gary, because or not Gary, Jeffrey, because
You see Gary's.
I see Gary's appendix. Um, the whole point of Gary's appendix was that a reader could get multiple sources for ideas and things like that. And so I have finally come to the conclusion that it's got to happen. Delver has to open up. And the good news is I have plenty of people who have said, "Hey, man, if you all want some content, I'll get you some." So I've got some good content creators out there who I think I can depend on.
What I've found that has worked for me is you you have to continually grow that stable, because you'll have people that will be good, but they may be only on for an issue or two, and then for whatever reason they're no longer are. And so I am finding myself needing to expand out, and it's also good too, because I don't want just, I like to have, I still like, there's certain people I'm glad to have every issue, and I love and forever, as far as the people that have written from the beginning, I'm happy. But it's also good to get new voices coming in.
Yeah.
And also, if somebody says, you know what, I just don't have anything this month or this time, you can say, it's okay, I'll catch you next time.
Yeah. No, I I won't say that I have trouble coming up with content. I have journals all over the house where I write down ideas when they come into my mind, so I don't lose them. And then once a month, I go around and I start collecting all these pieces of paper and things and start putting my ideas down on, like, in one place. But I've never really had a trouble with creating content. The problem now is time. I'm enjoying creating the content for multiple games, not just like an old school game. And so I'm having to accept the reality that I'm going to have to take a step back, let some other people create the content so that I can continue to put out what my readers are expecting, on a somewhat regular basis. So we'll see how that goes. We'll touch base in a year.
Yes.
Let's come back in a year and say, Jim, how's your sanity right now? We'll see.
Yeah, I think, and I think it's also interesting. I mean, I have a certain, I think there's other things I've done that I have a certain amount of ownership or want to have control. And it is kind of interesting where you may ask a person for doing something large like an adventure, and it may not come back like you're thinking it will. Not that it's bad, but it's different. And I
Yeah.
find it's interesting how to, you know, stop for a minute, look it over, think about it, let it change you, and then look at it again, and then uh, create some sort of synthesis. I mean, it's kind of interesting. Where I think sometimes, with some material, not necessarily like Gary's appendix, but like say adventures, it's that whole like somebody has an idea, and then you look at it and you think you have a little bit different idea, but then you look at the two, compare the two ideas, and then something between the two kind of emerges. And it's, I mean, it's like we all have, and I recognize myself, I got limitations. I have short-sightedness in certain areas, and it's good to have a voice outside of my own rather than me just always trying to dictate what things are supposed to be, because, or I think they are, because I can be surprised by, by something new.
I reached out when I did the first issue of the Runes magazine, which is for the new Shadowdark RPG by Kelsey Dion. Um, I was doing Delver, but I wanted to do Runes. I really liked Shadowdark. I really fell into it. I thought, man, I love old school games, but there was something about it, and I said, I'm gonna do something for that game. And so I started to do it, but my time was extremely limited. And so I'm very thankful because I reached out to a friend of mine, Dan, Professor DM. I don't
Yeah.
know if you follow his channel, and I said, hey, would you be willing to write an article for Runes? I needed some more content. And he said, would love to. What do you want? And so it was kind of nice that he did that. He allowed me to say, I want it on this topic. And he wrote to that topic. So it sort of was a slow, like, okay, I didn't give him full reign. He let me, sort of keep him within the fence
Yeah.
line. But I I think I can do that. I think I'm gonna, some of the things that are in Delver, for example, like random tables and stuff like that. I can give small guidelines, like what I'm looking at, word count, things like that. But for adventures, I have to accept the fact that every person out there who's ever written an RPG adventure writes it a little differently, not like you do.
Right.
And so I'm looking forward. I'm my heart's racing, saying I'm looking forward to that first adventure in Delver that I didn't write. I don't know how, but I have to put faith in my writers and say, listen, um, I've written some bad adventures. I've played some bad adventures. I read Dragon magazine as a kid. There were plenty of mediocre ones, but you, as a DM, you took it and you made it your own. And so that's
Right.
what you kind of hope for with the adventures you produce. And so I'm hoping that whatever writers want to contribute adventures, they'll give me the best they can, and then we'll put it out there.
So I have a post-apocalyptic. It's not going to be a series. I had the first issue, Journey to the Madlands, done a couple years ago. I'm doing a follow-up issue, but I took the idea for the post-apocalyptic creatures from the Microsoft game. Do you remember Impossible Creatures?
I don't know. I don't know that one. Was it? It was a video. It was a computer game, PC game.
Yeah, so so what you look up Impossible Creatures, and what you would do is it was you had a scientist, and you would combine creatures for an army.
Okay.
And then you would combine, say, termite and elephant, and or bombardier beetle and porpoise, or maybe wasp and tiger, and it would produce these creatures, and you kind of do like the scale, and it would change them, like what's
Yeah.
more dominant. And so, and then you would, you use like the typical games where you explore, and then you find the other person, you attack them. So you're sending these mutated odd creatures, but the idea is they're not like, there are natural creatures that are combined in a way. And so I created a spreadsheet to randomize the creatures. And then I create a couple randomizers to trigger other aspects to throw into that. And then
Sure.
it gives me a prompt.
Yeah.
So So for this one, there'll be a coyote and a porcupine, octopus and a gorilla, and an
Mhm.
archerfish and a bear, or
Yeah.
three of them. So then I create a whole ecology around these things. And then I ask an artist to draw them. I did that recently. And also the first Badlands is a similar situation. The first Badlands, the artist was a person from originally from Spain, living in he's living in Taiwan. And so some of the stuff I thought everybody knew what a walking stick was, and I kind of described it in such a way, but
He
not a
didn't know.
clue. Yeah, and I thought I was describing a dragonfly, and I don't know he knew what a dragonfly was. It came out as a normal fly, and I thought, on one hand, I don't mind because it could be that the person writing this was inaccurate. It could be the person drawing it was inaccurate. They both could be inaccurate. Like there's a certain amount of like, I don't have to have it exactly like it's in my head because it's
Yeah.
okay. And I had this other person draw it, so his stuff came out closer to what I had in my mind, but he added flourishes that I would not have put in there. And I'm not going to say anything because I'm glad it's a different vision of what it is. And I feel a little bit more liberated for having to be like, this isn't exactly what I'm looking for. I want, like he added some flourishes, like that's cool. And like the coyote pine, the coyote porcupine, I would have gained it a more doggish snout, but he did a more porcupine. And I thought, you know what? I'm not going to say anything. It's okay. It's
Yeah.
okay. I need to be surprised and I need to not be trying to control all levels of it. And it's within the parameters I set. And it was this person's vision. And there's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah, artists. I've I typically stuck with clip art or not clip art, stock art. But I've only recently been able to find a few artists that I've been like, okay, I can work with your payment, or your fees. I'm still small school here, and so I found an artist recently, and the only thing I asked of him was, I said, look, uh, my thing isn't what you create for me, it's that you get it to me on time. Because when you're creating layouts and spreads and things and you've got to drop art in there, you can write all the content, but when you want to put some art in there, it can really mess with your layout. So having it on time is great. But what's even better is when the artist gives you what you ask for. And I'm not an artist. I couldn't draw these things. So anything they deliver to me is usually a step up from what I could sketch myself. But I've learned to just tell the artist, I need an image of this. It should have these sort of elements, but and I always try to add, I trust you on this. You're the artist, so give me what you can. And to the point, I haven't been disappointed. Um, I'm starting to really enjoy working with artists because I can take that part off of my to-do list. I don't need to get an art piece for this page or this creature or whatever. I just know it's coming. The hard part for me is just finding people who will deliver on time. Um,
My first experience was bad. It turned out fine. Um, and my other experiences has been good. I've had people flake out, only one enough that it really kind of was an issue, but for the most part, most have been pretty decent, and some are very fast and very dependable. So they
yeah.
are out there. Um, but
Well, for I think uh, the internals of Gary's appendix is black and white, right? I think
correct.
that's right. Yeah. So same with Delver and Runes. The interior being black and white, that helps because with the color, I know that adds a little bit of time or a lot of time depending on the artist. So been very fortunate that I just require right now line art, black and white drawings. But yeah, I'm hoping to avoid that, but I know as someone who's been involved in multiple author projects, I've written for books that there were multiple contributors. And when the publisher says, look, the deadline is March 1st, if you've been writing long enough, that one writer is going to push that deadline, and it slows everything down. It pushes out. That's one of the reasons, and I'm not trying to get on on a pedestal here, but that's one of the reasons whenever I look at Kickstarters and they have a due date or a fulfillment date of like a year or two out, those are the ones I'm like, no, they're getting a stable of writers and they're
Right.
hoping for the best. And I know that if they say, backers will receive their rewards on June of 2024, I'm like, nope, I've written in enough of those projects to know that one writer, just one, can push it back a month. Two or more writers delayed. And so people go, well, why are these things taking so long? It's because they've never been involved in one. And so I do give a lot of patience to content creators who are handling multiple writers and artists and stuff, because when they try to promise a due date, you hope for them, but it's hard. It's got to be hard.
Yeah, and that's why my philosophy and my I won't say business strategy because that's a little strong, but I generally I will never go to Kickstarter until I'm really very close to being done.
Yeah.
I do
Yeah.
not want that stress.
I'm gonna be honest, and if there's anyone watching out there, I've said this in some. I have a newsletter I put out. I've said it there. I've said it in maybe an article or two, and maybe a couple interviews. But I'm a big believer in the fact that I believe the success of my Delver has been that my backers, when the project ends, they usually have that zine in their hands within 2 months, usually less. I do 2 week Kickstarters. It takes 2 weeks for the money to arrive from Kickstarter.
Right.
When that money shows, I release the PDF right away, and I immediately upload the files to my printer. And the printer can take anywhere from 1 week to 3 weeks. They're usually about 2. And so I'm able to sort of not promise, but I say, if all goes well, you'll have your printed issue within a month and a half. And I'm a big believer that has been helpful to me. I think people are sort of getting tired of waiting a year for things. You give your money, and sometimes I forget that I backed something. Well,
Right.
that hasn't happened lately because I have this rule. I'm like, if it's more than 6 to 8 months, I'll wait.
Yeah, and I think people, and if you're going to be later, I think you need to communicate, because there's a friend that um who on Facebook somebody was complaining, listing about like high offenders for no communication and late
Mhm.
Kickstarters. And my friend was mentioned, and I went through and did an analysis of his Kickstarters and his comments, and I never did go back to the original poster, but then I started thinking about looking at, I don't, he was never later, I don't think, than he ever promised. It's just that for whatever reason, people kept thinking they maybe needed more regular updates.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
but it's so, I think if you're going to have an extended Kickstarter, if you're going to be extended in your fulfillment, I should say, you should be communicating often.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
But you keep it short, you don't have to worry about it. You just say.
I've learned with Delver One, I over communicated. I actually had a few people say, "Okay, dude, you're updating like every other day or
Right.
3 times a week or whatever." And so I've dialed it back, and I think I've found that sweet spot where I keep my backers sort of happy. They know things are moving forward. Like, for instance, I'll post a photo when the boxes arrive. I do my own fulfillment. So I have this thing now that I do that when the boxes arrive, I open them and take a picture and I post, boxes are here. And so my backers know
They're milestones. You are posting milestones, not
yes.
it's not a
Yes.
blog. But I think this person didn't have milestones to be communicated. But if you're going to be 9 months out, you
Yeah.
probably ought to still be putting something out every 3 weeks. Just say,
Yeah.
hey.
Well, if anyone's out there is watching this and they've been contemplating doing a zine, that's one of them. You got to communicate with your backers. You got to let them know where you are in the process or what's happening and stuff like that. But I think another thing that you need to be aware of is that there is a community of zine creators, and we talk on your Facebook group and things like that. There's this community out there that has sort of grown up again. Remember, zines sort of shrunk, and maybe they were always in the musical community or whatever. But with the RPGs, they sort of collapsed, and then all of a sudden, there's been this renaissance of zines. And I think anyone who's thinking of getting into this is the perfect time, because Zine Quest is in just a few weeks.
Yeah.
You could start there and test the waters and see how you like it. But you have to know what you're getting into. We've already, I mean, in just 20 or 30 minutes, we've talked about artists and content creator writers and deadlines and communication. I mean, there's more. There's a lot more that we probably could bring up. But I try to encourage anyone who ever reaches out to me and says, "Hey, I had this idea." I'm like, "Look, write it down. Write it down. Give yourself a paragraph of what your zine is going to be about. You know, if you're excited about it, if you're really excited about it, there are going to be other people excited about it." I think zines are the long tail. You know that term.
Yeah.
I think zines are the long tail, but if you were excited about something, there's going to be you're going to find your people out there, and but that's one of them. Communication. Golly, man. I mean, I feel like there are times I feel like I don't tell my backers enough, but then I have to remember, no, you're doing fine. You know, you used to do too much. Now you're, I think I'll know when I do too little.
If something changes from what you're saying, that's a good time to post. But again, milestones, I think, are good ones. Proof copies ordered. Okay.
Yep.
And then when you get the first proof copies in, I will a lot of times will do a flip through video.
Yeah.
If I don't have it done before a Kickstarter, that's a good one to put on a Kickstarter too, if you got it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then, yeah. So
you know,
things like
that's
that.
another thing. Get a zine. If you're going to do a zine, get it done, especially if it's just you. Get it done, kickstart it, do what Jeffrey said, include that video of the walk, you know, it doesn't cost much to get a print copy, full color, if you're going that route. There are printers out there that'll do one-offs, and you know, you may spend a little extra for that one copy, but when people see that something exists,
yes,
and man, that'd be a great way to do it.
Yeah, for most part, any Kickstarter you do, the closer it is to being completed, the more confident people will be for backing you, unless you're already an established person.
Right.
If you're Kevin Crawford, people will write you a check.
Yeah, I'm in. I don't care. Don't you want to know what the fulfillment date is? Nope. I know it'll get here. It'll get here when it gets here. Yeah. You know what? It occurs to me that for the RPG zine Facebook group, we could probably create a zine of the best the best advice. You know, get every RPG ziner in there to give you a paragraph, and you know, we'll make it a PDF or something. But every time I speak to someone, to other creators like you, Jeffrey, I learned something new. The flip through never occurred to me. Never.
The first one I did it on my deck. It was in the summertime, and we had some chimes in the background. I think my dog was walking, and I wasn't paying attention. I just did it outside, and I was flipping through, and somebody remarked, like, "Is that your backyard?" Like, that's so relaxing. So I almost had an ASMR video.
Wow, I didn't think about. Yeah, I was thinking it would be annoying, but you're right. Some people would probably be like, "That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to get your zine, and I'm going to go out on the patio, and I'm just gonna."
But just I think the idea of seeing it flip through and you hear just a little bit of ambient sound, and you know, it's just a nice summer day, and but so you know, you can do it multiple ways, but it's communicating in a way that people can engage and doesn't take a lot of their time. Is that it is easy to do.
Yeah. What's your I'm gonna put you on the spot here with Gary's appendix. What's your favorite part of the zine process?
My favorite part is there's two parts. I do enjoy writing the bestiary. I do enjoy getting the covers for it, and I really don't like roughing out the layout. I don't really care for, but when I'm doing the final tweaks for the layout, I really enjoy that. So those are just odd things. I don't know why those things stick out, but But when I have all the text, I'm like, how am I going to make this fit? How am I going to do this? It's like,
Yeah,
it's like,
yeah.
do I need
I
art?
like play testing my adventure. That's my favorite part.
Well, see, here's the deal. I do not, up until this moment, there is not one thing I created that has to be play tested.
It's a good point. Yeah.
But now I'm coming up with, because I don't know why. I guess I'm mean. Now I got like they have people writing like 4 different adventures. I've never play tested. I don't know why I've committed to, I financially and emotionally committed to doing things I haven't done on that scale. But now it's like, okay, there's going to be a point where I'm going to have to play test all these things. I don't know.
It, yeah. And feel free to ring me up when it comes to, let me tell you, with the play testing, you know, first off, play testing is like running any RPG game. It's getting those people together, right?
So what you're talking about, let's just scale us back, because and I
Sure.
know we got limited time, and so
Yeah.
you had some questions, and I think the play testing I'm very interested in.
Well, then
So
we'll do that as a separate,
no, we can go through this. I think we're fine here.
okay. Okay.
So I'm going to ask some very questions. So for play testing, you are just the play testing. Do you seek people outside of yourself to run a play test of your product?
No, I
Okay.
run them.
Okay.
I run them. And the only reason, and that's going to have to change, especially once I start offering up some freelance writers the opportunity to do that. But the reason I do it is if I create the adventure, I probably know it the best. I know the tricks, I know the surprises, things like that. When I run them, most of the time I run them online. Most of my I have a stable of about, well, I guess now it's about 8. I had one drop out. I have about 8 folks that I can call on and say, hey, I got an adventure. It's going to be 2 to 3 hours online. I used to do them locally in Atlanta before COVID. Not for Delver. I used to write adventures for Goodman Games, 5th
Oh,
edition.
really?
Yeah, that's a whole other story. But they have a series of modules, or what I call modules, adventures called 5th edition fantasy, and it's for the 5th edition of Dungeons and Dragons. And I was at Gen Con and ran into Joseph Goodman, and somehow I managed to convince him to let me have a shot, and he let me write these little mini adventures. They produced one of the first 5th fantasy books that had like, I think 12 mini adventures in it. It was only 48 pages, so everyone was like 4 pages. And I think I submitted 10, and he picked, I think, 5. So 5 out of the 12 were mine, which I took to, I
Yeah.
said, well, Joe, I'm ready to write a big module. And I didn't think he would like bite right away, but he did. And, they said, hit me with, I think it was 5 or 6 paragraph ideas. So I did that. And then he picked one, and he picked the one that I was like, oh, he won't pick this one. He'll like that one. Nope. He picked the one I was like, shit. And they were all good ideas. It was just the one that I was like, had the least mental energy spent on. But to get to your story, when you do a play test, you're either going to do it in person or digital. Digital is a whole other issue, but in person is an issue. With in person, you got to get 5 people, 6 people at a table, and and get them all there at the same time.
Right. You're limited by people and space.
Yes. But when you open it up to online, because I've met and played with so many people over the years, and I maintain contact with them, that it was pretty easy to reach out to you and say, hey, if you're interested, I got this adventure I'm running, and you don't have to do anything. I'll provide. Oh, and let me tell you, with one set of adventures, I was running a campaign. Their characters would progress. But I've since learned that when I create an adventure, what I do is I create 4 or 5, sometimes more, pre-gen characters to provide to my players. It speeds things up, right? So you can write to the level you're writing for, the level of the adventure. And if they die, they don't have any emotional attachment to the
and you got
character.
limited time, right? You're wanting to take
Right.
advantage of they're giving you your time. You want to make it as efficient as possible.
Right. But you have to play test. And I'll tell you here's the short story. The first time I play tested one of my adventures for the Goodman Games module that I was running was a full adventure. One of my players cast Banish on my bad guy. banish causes, if they fail their wisdom, I forget what it was, whatever the role was. If the bad guy fails it, they are teleported to another plane for like a minute, 60 seconds. It was enough. It threw me. I wasn't ready for it. They banished them, and then in that 60 seconds, they took the opportunity to heal up, get in position, set up a couple really good traps, and when the thing reappeared, it was hilarious. But if I hadn't have run that, I would not have been able to go back and edit the adventure to make it where if that was a possibility, the GM wouldn't be like, hung out to dry. So you have to play test them. And so now I play test. At the end, I ask them for, half a page of notes. I give them an email address and just say, send it to me. There's no, if you hate it, say, I hate it. They give me good feedback. Sometimes it's this monster was too powerful. Sometimes it's that trap was just too complicated to figure out.
Yeah.
But you got to have it. And so I feel that the adventures I write, because I know they've been played, I feel that they are ready for a GM to take and tweak a little here and there and run it and do what they need.
Well, and I think if you're running smaller adventures, there's less at stake.
Yeah.
And so for you, it's like, it may not be worth the hassle of finding 4 other groups to run it independently. So if you're just doing, because honestly, if it's in a zine and it's a small adventure, and like you said with Dragon, if it doesn't work out, I'd be like, it's okay. It's like, I still got my money's worth. But if you got a 40-page adventure and you spent $35 for it, and all of a sudden it's like, I don't understand it. It's confusing and lame. It probably needs more extensive play testing.
Yeah. I'll give Joseph and Goodman Games the biggest props. When you write for them, they send you this, like, when at the time I was doing it, it was like 20 or 30 page. It was a guide manual. It had everything from like fonts to use to, if you write gold piece, do you do 6 space GP or is it 6?
Yeah, it's a style Bible.
Style Bible. So they not only provided that, but they have no qualms about sending back 5 pages and saying, redo this, whatever. So you thicken your skin a little bit, and you learn that, it's nothing personal. They just something they didn't like in that adventure. They also do run test adventures of that stuff you're doing. You're required. Right. They ask you to do it, but they also do it on their own. But that was probably one of the best experiences I ever had. I wrote 3 full-sized and then those 5 minis, and great experience. And they actually wrote, if you're into that sort of thing, Goodman Games has a book that they published called How to Write Adventures That Don't Suck. It's a PDF. You can get it in PDF or print and read it. It's outstanding. It's a great book.
Okay. Yeah. And I think the thing is, going back to, if you do it online, like through Zoom, you can record the session.
Yeah. And I do. I do, because sometimes I forget what one of the players like did or said, or maybe some of the questions they ask. I'm like, oh, I got to remember that. But then I don't, I'll write it down, but sometimes there's just so much going on. So what I typically do is I'll rewatch the adventure, some portions of it, when I get to my notes, and it's helpful to record it. So definitely do that.
Yeah, and I'm thinking, because some of my stuff is actually going to be longer, I do want other people to run it, because I know what I'm writing, or I'm not writing them, but I'm going to be editing them and so forth. But I just want to make sure that it's clear to everybody who runs it, like, what should be happening. And so, and I'm just trying to think of ways to get other people. And I thought about maybe, through maybe giving a certain payment, if you run a game, X amount of dollars.
No, my players are going to be watching this and be like, payment? What? Yeah.
Well, not the players, just the GM.
Yeah, the GM. Yeah, now that I could get. And the players, if one of my players said, look, it's 2 to 3 hours. How about throwing some money my way? I can do that now. Delver has reached a point where I can do that. But when you're starting a zine, man, you don't know how much you're going to pull in or how much profit's going to be left over. And let me tell you a secret. I can't speak for Jeffrey here, but zines are not going to put you in Hollywood. You're not going to be living the Beverly Hills. You're not going to be living the Beverly Hill lifestyle as a zine writer creator.
No, because it's everything. Every decision you do, he's got to say, "What's my return on it?"
Right.
So,
Yeah.
because like for instance, it's whether you're going back to using stock art or paying for art. I mean, you go through all these things. It's like, what does that really? How does it affect the bottom line? And
Yeah.
you may say, "Well, I'm not just in it for the money," and that's fine. But in the end, if you spend $350 on a cover versus spending $25 on stock art,
Yep.
that can mean a big difference
You got to
between.
recover it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. There's like I said, there's so many things about zine creation and content creation that you could have a different episode on every single one of them and they would roll into the hours of this. I mean, you know as well as I do that when you sometimes get in discussions with content creators, you can have one subject and you could talk on it for hours because everybody has a different experience and they have different results. And that's kind of how this thing, I'm gonna turn it back on you, is that, one of the things that started this conversation with you and me was Delver has sort of reached this like it's sort of stable. I'm not seeing the growth that I want, but I'm not seeing a decline. And so I want to go that extra. I want to try to kick it up again. And so I think I reached out to you and some others, and I said, how are you advertising? And you said that you've had good. I don't know. I don't remember your exact words, but you said Facebook works
ads.
for you.
Well, I
Facebook
said
ads
is
work
I've
for you.
never lost money on Facebook ads. So I have uh, Yum Yum GM worked with. I was trying to record a session. He didn't want to do it, but he kind of walked me through setting up Facebook ads. It's not clear just to go in and do it.
No, it's not.
Once you set it, do your first one, then you can just replicate it. It's not a big deal. But I have spent generally between $200 to $500. And I'm going to qualify some things just so we're clear. The way I determine making money or not making money or return is based off of tracking from the ads to the tracking of ads from from Facebook to the Kickstarter. So if you put in a custom link,
Yep.
you can track that.
Yep.
But what I will tell you is I believe if somebody clicks the keep me notified, whatever that is in Kickstarter, I don't know why I can't remember it. So whether it's pre-launch and they say notify me later, or they say I'm interested, I think the minute that they click that, and then at a later time they go back and decide to actually make the commitment, I think Kickstarter takes the credit for it.
Yeah.
I firmly believe that. I firmly believe that. So that being said, when I look at the numbers, generally it's generally dollar for dollar. Whatever I spend, I get back. So for Gary's appendix, I don't worry so much about pre-launch because I usually get okay numbers at pre-launch. But when I started Scoundrels of Brixton, I spent $500 on Facebook because it's a traveler. It's not a traveler. It's a traveler. It's a CFIS engine. So then you talk a smaller group of people with traveler, and you're talking a smaller group of people who knows what CFIS is to identify this traveler.
Yeah.
And so I thought I need to spend as much as I can. Well, not as much as I can. So I spent $500 on a cover, and I spent $500 on Facebook ads. And
yeah, and that's the long tail. I mean, you were going after the long tail for that particular issue.
Well, and I just knew that I had to come out swinging. Now, in the end, it funded for like $4,100.
Yeah.
I so what I did is I had less interior art. I worked very, very, very hard to create a layout design, a visual design that had graphical elements to not make it feel like it was devoid of art.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and so I was able to sacrifice, and it worked out okay. And I don't regret it. But I'm not going to spend $500 again for that. But it's worked out. But I will say that the Facebook ads, the problem with Facebook ads is you think you could narrow it more than you can.
I've played with them, just not launching, but I've played with the settings, and it's interesting. You dial in the age group, and you can go down to like
Yeah.
the what do you call it, the locale, or
Yeah.
the
I want all left-handed blind women in the city
exactly.
of whatever, but you can't
Yeah,
say I want everybody in this Facebook group to get hit.
right. That, and you just hit it.
It's
You just
like,
hit one of what my problem was. I was trying to find out how to advertise to, people on Facebook who frequented certain groups or certain
yeah.
discussions, and it's not there.
No, I know. I know it's stupid. It's like it's so easy. If I could just say these
And
three groups, market
and
to these
Facebook's
people.
making billions of dollars, and I'm thinking, you're making billions, so obviously you don't care, because if you gave us that functionality, you'd make billions of billions. But yeah, whatever.
So what you can do is you get lucky. Traveler is somehow an option in the RPG groups. I don't know how. Old School Essentials isn't. I don't know why
It's
that
not.
is. I don't know why. It doesn't make any sense. Why Traveler? Well, it does make sense if you know the reason, but
Yeah.
it's unfathomable to me. So
It's not related to group size. It's definitely not.
no, no.
They don't care about group size.
So I would say that doing the general population, um, I just have done it. I've done it. So if something I want to get something new that's never really been done before, I'll push the Facebook ads to earlier to generate more people to push the notify
Yeah.
me at launch to hopefully get the Kickstarter algorithm to
Yeah.
promote it a little bit more.
Yeah. Yeah. Somebody told me it's like the wheel rolling down a hill. You got to get it to a certain point, and then you let it go, and it just, you hope that it just, just gathers momentum, I guess.
But oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, let me ask you this question. Sort of change the subject here. Zine Quest is coming up next month.
Yes.
2 weeks. You have anything planned? Do you want anything you want to talk about?
Yeah, Gary's Appendix 5. Thank you very much.
I was hoping, I was like, how can I segue into this? I was like, I'll just have him do it.
Yeah,
What's that you got behind you there, Jeffrey?
yeah. For those who are listening at home and don't have on YouTube, yeah, I got this is a beautiful cover done by Danny, who I found on Upwork, who is
It's
very fast.
awesome.
Yeah, it's taken him a little while to dial in what I need because he's never done this kind of stuff before. But I showed him some pictures of gelatinous cubes, and he
Yes.
just like knocked it out of the park.
The color,
Yeah,
the color is, in the yellow for Gary's Appendix is pretty standard, but that green, I just saw, I was like, oh man, that's gonna be so good.
But what I will say is I have not found, I think certain covers all of a sudden are just kicking it. Like I thought I needed to up my game. It has not improved my sales.
No, no, I agree. I do think that people like to have something physically in their hand. So I will say that I've seen an improvement. Just as an aside, I chose, my printer offers this feel. It's called and I just went blank on it. It's called laminate. Just went blank on it. It's like a velvet. The
Yeah,
cover
it's a
feels,
mix 'em.
yes,
I
the laminate.
it makes me feel like to me, it gives me a sensation of human flesh, and it kind of creeps me out. But I know what you're talking about.
But I've had readers say, dude, we love the way the covers, because there's something about it. And
Yeah.
I noticed when I went to that I had a bump. People were complimenting it and liking it. So you got to tweak here and there. But so, hey, I
right.
want to get back to Gary's Appendix. You're going to be launching this in February.
Yeah, it'd be probably February 5th.
February 5th. Is it going to have any add-ons? You're going to allow add-ons?
I don't do add-ons. That's against my philosophy. I don't. So some stuff. So just to do. So before I started Gary's Appendix, I looked at Delver, and I looked at what you did, and I didn't necessarily model myself after that, but the idea of old school essentials, certain size zine on a regular basis, I thought I can do that, but I've not been able to duplicate your numbers, the sales. And I thought I think I can get at least these numbers, but for a regular publication, but I found that not to be the case, which I thought was interesting.
Well, we'll have to talk offline. Maybe I can help you with that. I don't know. I love Gary's Appendix. And here's the deal. I'm a latecomer to it because I bought the back issues directly from you. And to me, it's just one of my favorite. I love it because of the variety. I mean, that's what it is. But I don't know. I can't tell you any secrets other than, I enjoy what I do. And I think
what I will say is I think this should be both and I'm glad I did it. There's no regrets, but the fact of the matter is you can look at something and you can think, I can do that. You may think you can, but you may not be able to. So it's like,
there's a learning curve. I had to learn layout. I had to learn the software. I use I used to use something called Lucid. Now I use the Affinity Publisher. And you got to watch some videos. You got to get your hands dirty and figure out how to do things.
It's the content. I think it comes down to. I think what it's going to say is I've thought about is I think the type of content that you're producing definitely registers with people. It's more utilitarian.
And when I wrote the first Delver, I wrote it for me.
Yeah.
That's the thing is, they always say create something you would play or you would use, and then hopefully you'll find other people. And so the stuff I just put in Delver was the stuff I was making up for my own games. And so I am glad to hear that it's enjoyed by other people. But all I can tell you is good luck with your zine quest. I'll definitely promote it. I promote other people's zines as much as I can.
So what are you offering for Zine Quest?
I'm on the fence. I launch one next week. I launch it's called the double feature. It's the fantasy RPG double feature. I'm still questioning my sanity. I have committed to producing one issue of Delver and one issue of Runes every other month. I'll do them in January, March, May, and so on. And so by the end of the year, there will be 12 issues total, 6 Delver, six Runes. Those are getting launched next week. So I don't have anything for February other than I've been asked to do Airlock #2. I just did Airlock #1 as a sort of I don't know why I did. It was for the Mothership RPG. But I still get lots of people asking me, when are you going to do another Airlock? I might I have the Kickstarter already done. I just gotta click that button. But I don't know. I feel very blessed that my supporters and backers have allowed me to do this. So I'm part of me is like, you know what? Let some others have the sunshine. You don't need to be producing something every time you turn around. But it is hard to say no to Zine Quest because you do get a good bump.
And that's what I found. And all of a sudden, I just had Gary's Appendix just ended I just had it December. I'm just not fulfilling. And the reason I'm pushing this one is that's the only thing I have that was aligned to actually be a zine. The next thing in line is actually a magazine size.
Right.
And it's like, and I'm kind of loath to do this so soon, but here I am.
You have to strike when the iron's hot, and Kickstarter makes it easy. You know, they do a lot of the advertising for you. They make it easy to find all the zines in one place. Whereas, you know, before that, you just had to go filter through and get lucky to find one. But so if you're out there thinking about doing a zine, you know, ZineQuest can get you on the map. If you produce something that people like and people want, it's probably the best, in my opinion, it's probably the best time to strike.
And
And
I
if
think
you're not
also,
ready, wait till next year.
right, because I've got a
Mhm.
friend that did not have one ready, had an idea, who's also produced zines quite regularly. Uh, I think he's going on 3 years now. He had health issues and weird stuff and artist issues, and it turned into a nightmare. So if you're going to do it, it's better to be more than just an idea. It's like,
Yeah. And I'll reiterate, if you're going to do it for Zine Quest, I truly believe one of the best ways you can sort of guarantee or at least enhance your success is to have it done,
yes.
so that when the Zine Quest ends, wait 2 weeks, get your money, and then get that thing printed and in people's hands. Don't make them wait 6 months or a year. You know, it's
And you can
that can
also
that
do a serviceable, you can do a serviceable zine on using a Microsoft Word or Google Docs.
you can.
You
Yeah.
can you
Uh,
can do a nice layout, but you gotta pay attention. It's made a little bit more harder. But I just did a mock-up for an adventure. Someone handed an adventure to me. I didn't realize that 12,000 words was going to be 40 pages. So I had to so I go, what have I done? So I had to I was after my formatting, but I had to go back and format to double columns, and I had to create he gave it to me in blah, and I can't process blah. So I had to do a quick layout in Word. You know, I'm not going to use Word, but it's very serviceable if you
yeah.
do it right. I mean, it works fine.
Let me tell you. I mentioned Goodman Games earlier. Goodman Games has a limit, 25,000. If you go 25,050, they will tell you got to cut 50 words. They don't mess around.
Yeah.
They do not. They say, but they also provide that Bible, so you know how to format your you know, format everything. You don't have to do the formatting so much like the double column stuff, but they tell you font size, header types, all that kind of stuff.
Right.
Even even
Right. They're
what's
wanting
that?
to do the work that you should be doing up front. They don't want to be spending their
Absolutely.
time.
They don't want you dropping a 40,000 page, you know, single line, single space document in somebody's lap.
And using gold P, saying gold P, sometimes doing GP, sometimes doing G
Right.
period P period. Because I've got
Yeah.
an editor who does stuff for me, and he calls me out on stuff. And like, you're I'm sorry. Like, it's like I'm inconsistent. I'll say
Yeah. You
I
have
use
to.
one term another time and a completely different term the other time. One's right, one's wrong. I don't know what I'm doing. I'll create a name of a creature and I'll change the name of it as I go through multiple times. It's like you shouldn't expect the editor to do that.
No, not at all. And love your editor.
Yes.
If you find an editor that you love and trust, and they are good and they are timely, and they give good feedback and they take good feedback, pay them well.
Yeah.
They are worth it.
It is. I've actually been pretty fortunate, especially with Scoundrels. He's done work for Scoundrels, did editing, and he's also then did doing writing, and he also edits a lot of my other stuff. But we just kind of it's kind of a funny relationship that we have. I think every once in a while, one of us gets a little growly, and everything's fine.
Well, let me tell you this.
Uh,
I wish you luck with Gary's. I wish you luck with Zine Quest. We'll call it. We'll
oh,
just say Zine Quest because it's a fun experience, and I think you're going to do just fine.
oh yeah, I'm not worried about the future. I was trying to break $10,000, but I don't know that it's going to happen. I was like, I'm really close. Like issue 2, like issue 3. It's like, nope. Issue 4, nope.
I do think you hit plateaus, and then something. I've had two times where my Delver, you know, it grew and then it plateaued, and then it did it again and it plateaued. So I'm hoping to figure out one more
Well,
jump.
I've also looked through different publications, and it seems like sometimes you do have some that just dip and then they go back up. Like there
Yeah.
might be, so I'm looking. It's like there's no easy way to predict anything.
No, no. No, you just do put out your best stuff and hope that people like it, and don't say, well, you've really lost, the quality is going down. I'm done. But
Agreed.
I will say this. This has been probably one of the most enjoyable chats about zines and content creation that I've ever done. I want to do this again. So we got to do this again.
We do. Agreed. We won't have to
Agreed.
wait. We don't have to wait years to do it.
Yeah. And next time, maybe I'll actually be in my actual workspace basement. My wife's getting her office painted, so it's like really empty in here and very echoey. There's not a warm, fuzzy feeling, but my basement is like 34 degrees. So
what you should have done is, I think that the story should have told us who's the Japanese lady that my wife used to watch her videos, where she's like, if it doesn't bring you joy, to get rid of it.
throw it out. Yep.
Yeah,
Yep. This
exactly.
is my
Like,
wife's office. This is how,
what's full of
she
stuff, and she just got rid of it all. Now we
very
live in
simple,
austere. Yeah.
very simple work ethic. Nothing on the shelves,
Just a vase.
just a vase, just the one. And that's there for throwing, if you
Yeah,
get mad.
exactly. At you. That's a warning. You look at that vase. She looks at the vase, looks at you. You're like, okay. It looks like it could take it looks like it could be thrown multiple times without risk of shattering. So
that is, and this is the guy in me. I didn't know. I used to work for a company. Every holiday, they would give all the employees a gift, and I was only at that company for 3 years, but I got 3 of these things. That's something called Waterford. It's very, very, very expensive. Not very expensive, but expensive. That sucker weighs probably 9 pounds of glass. Yeah, you're probably right. If she threw it at me, I would be dead, and the vase would still hold flowers the next morning.
For the next husband.
Yeah, it's that thing is a weapon. That's a clue game weapon right there.
Yeah, exactly.
I think Jeffrey did it with the vase in his wife's office.
Yeah, exactly.
It's good talking to you, Jeffrey.
Great, James. So anyway, good luck with your Kickstarter, and until next time, take care.
I appreciate it. We'll do this again soon, okay?
Sounds great.
Bye.